As your awareness links with these holy words in this exact time of cosmic alignment, know that your presence here surpasses simple coincidence or random surfing. Not by some magical chance, but rather by meticulously knit tapestry of spiritual intention. You have been divinely designed to meet this awakening at this precise crossroads in human history. At the edge of humanity's biggest transition since the start of recorded history, the cosmos has cooperated to put you exactly where you need to be. This is not about blind faith or religious dogma. Rather, it's about seeing the significant change in the fundamental fabric of reality, a metamorphosis that calls for your active involvement. Many see only chaos and disorder as we stand witness to the fast collapse of what previously appeared unchangeable. From political institutions to economic structures, social standards to technology paradigms. Those with awakened eyes, however, perceive a deeper pattern developing behind the surface upheaval. The familiar world is certainly vanishing before our very eyes, not as a goal unto itself, but rather as a required precursor to something considerably larger. Humanity is going through its own metamorphosis, shedding layers of illusion and false security that have held us tied to constrained modes of being, just as the caterpillar must disintegrate totally before hatching as a butterfly. This quantum leap in human consciousness, not only another cycle in the never-ending circle of rise and decline, marks a significant turning point. Old patterns of complacency, reliance on faulty human leaders, and shallow belief systems are collapsing as they can no longer contain the growing consciousness of individuals who follow the path of truth. Once pillars of stability, institutions now expose their natural fragility and compel mankind to face the unpleasant truth that external systems cannot provide actual security. Rather, this collapse is a cosmic call to ground ourselves in something far more lasting. The unshakable basis of divine truth existing outside the grasp of temporal authority. Beyond its superficial meaning, the statement "the collapse has begun" has great importance. It is meant to awaken in you the awareness that we are at a turning point in human growth, not to cause fear or despair. This is about becoming part of the creation of a new paradigm where spiritual authenticity replaces empty materialism, where real connection triumphs over false divisions, and where divine knowledge leads mankind forward, not only about seeing social decline or economic crises. Every selected soul reading these lines now carries a crucial component of this developing reality, therefore enabling it to be shaped next. Your part in this developing story is significantly more than passive watching. You have been summoned to be ready for chances and obstacles that will push your will and provide exceptional prospects for development and contribution. This preparedness is about developing the spiritual fortitude required to negotiate the approaching storms while preserving your integrity and purpose. It is not about hoarding money or looking for personal salvation. Though it might be difficult at times, the responsibility is also a holy honor that recognizes your willingness to support a greater cause during the most pivotal hour of human change. The collapse shows itself not just as devastation, but as a deep unmasking of illusions that have long kept humanity in its grip as the underpinnings of our built reality start to fall apart. Woven intimately into the fabric of contemporary life, these lies show themselves in three main ways: complacency, misguided faith in human authority, and the quest of shallow beliefs. Every one of these illusions has acted as a cozy prison, locking many people in patterns of reliance and distraction, and therefore blocking real spiritual awakening. Perhaps the most sneaky of these coverings is complacency, which masquerades as happiness but really acts as spiritual anesthetic. Modern civilization has mastered the craft of comfort, building complex systems meant to dull people to the deeper existential concerns. A society sleepwalking through life has been produced by the never-ending quest for material gain, the continual flow of entertainment, and the fixation with superficial accomplishments. Many have succumbed to the illusion that keeping the status quo equals achievement, never asking whether their lives fit greater goals or divine orders. This complacency shows up in little ways. The professional who ignores their spiritual growth and the individual who scrolls mindlessly through social media instead of participating in serious thought. Equally common is humanity's persistent habit of putting unrelenting confidence in human power figures and organizations, mistakenly assuming that these mortal persons have the solutions to life's greatest problems. People have looked for saviors in political leaders, business executives, scientific authorities, and charismatic personalities throughout history. The collapse exposes the basic limits and weaknesses present in all human systems by removing this illusion. Under duress, governments that seemed unassailable unexpectedly stumble. Financial organizations considered too large to fail collapse overnight, and authorities boldly declaring remedies discover themselves proven incorrect time and again. This revelation of human fallibility compels everyone to face the unpleasant reality that mortal hands cannot provide ultimate safety. Perhaps most harmful of all are the shallow notions that have pretended to be real spirituality in contemporary times. Often designed to fit seamlessly within modern society, these watered-down interpretations of religion lower deep spiritual truths to simple self-help strategies or positive thinking drills. They create generations of spiritual consumers instead of dedicated seekers by promising fast remedies and rapid enlightenment while asking nothing in return. The breakdown reveals these superficial structures as insufficient for negotiating the deeper trials of life, therefore disappointing and betraying people who have relied on them when problems emerge. These illusions combine in a perfect storm of deceit to provide a false sense of security and block real spiritual development. Superficial beliefs offer soothing but finally hollow responses to the most urgent issues of life. Complacency prevents people from asking challenging questions, and misguided reliance in human authority diverts faith from supernatural sources. Humanity has a choice when these veils lift: to accept the pain of genuine spiritual awakening or to withdraw into habitual habits of denial and evasion. This awakening is required as these illusions have kept mankind from confronting its deepest wounds and greatest possibilities. Society has evaded facing the systematic inequities, environmental deterioration, and spiritual poverty endangering our shared future by keeping the illusion of order through artificial methods. The fall, therefore, is both a warning and a chance to lose these false pleasures and come out stronger, more genuine, and more in line with divine goal. Those who confront this truth will find a reservoir of power and knowledge behind the layers of illusion that was formerly unreachable, ready to be used for the benefit of all creation. The collapse beyond shallow views. Collapse refers to a phenomena that transcends the usual definition of physical manifestations or societal turmoil. The outward symptoms, economic instability, political conflicts, and institutional failures, represent simply the top of a far deeper iceberg. Although these outside signs definitely attract public interest, the actual core of collapse reveals itself mostly inside the human heart and brain, hence signifying a deep spiritual change that challenges easy classification. This inner revolution is sparked by the convergence of several crises in different sectors, from government failure to environmental degradation, which pushes mankind to face basic issues about identity, purpose, and even life. The political atmosphere, now marked by growing division and disintegration of conventional power structures, illustrates how breakdown shows superficially while suggesting deeper spiritual consequences. Political systems all overshow indications of stress as they try to handle complicated, interrelated issues with antiquated tools. The world economy, too, shows fragility via uneven market activity, growing wealth inequalities, and unsustainable spending habits. These economic shocks are not isolated events, but rather part of a bigger trend pointing to the unsustainability of present paradigms. From family groups to community organizations, social structures reveal symptoms of fragmentation as conventional ties erode under the strain of contemporary technology and lifestyles. These visible events, therefore, just show the surface of a far more deep change taking place inside human awareness. Real collapse occurs when people face the insufficiency of their current belief systems, values, and assumptions about reality. Increased worry, existential pondering, and a rising feeling of separation from both self and others all show this internal change. Many people experience what may be called spiritual vertigo as they try to balance their prior certainties with current reality. The heart, historically thought of as the seat of emotions, becomes the battleground where old illusions die and new truths arise. Those used to linear thinking have to adjust to multidimensional points of view, therefore questioning deeply entrenched patterns of thought and perception. Collapse starts a cleansing process that works on several levels at once. Emotionally, people feel the removal of protective layers that formerly protected them from harsh realities. Faced with difficult, linked problems demanding whole answers, they intellectually test the boundaries of reasonable thought. Spiritually, the fall compels one to confront their innermost desires, buried anxieties, and unexamined beliefs on the significance and goal of life. This multifarious purification is more like a crucible than a delicate or slow process. It transforms base metals into gold under great heat and pressure. Hidden reasons, long buried under layers of societal indoctrination and personal denial, come for scrutiny. The breakdown reflects back to every person their actual character without the normal filters of excuse or reasoning. Relationships change like pretenses peel off to either show real ties or expose shallow attachments kept solely under shared delusions. As group myths fade, communities undergo similar changes that compel members to reevaluate their common identity and goal depending on more solid grounds. From personal identity to cultural legacy, this all-encompassing, purifying process questions every facet of human life. As its emptiness becomes clear, traditional indicators of achievement lose their appeal. Social position, financial money, and professional accomplishments show themselves as insufficient replacements for real satisfaction and spiritual development. The collapse therefore acts as both creator and destroyer, clearing false structures and making room for new, more genuine ones to rise. This duality of collapse explains why it seems both freeing and scary as it shatters comfortable illusions and opens opportunities to great change. The spiritual wake-up call, examining your inner truths again. This time offers a pressing need to do a comprehensive investigation of your innermost convictions and priorities while the world around us undergoes unmatched change. The topic is not only academic or philosophical. It goes to the heart of your spiritual identity. Are you really rooted in the divine, or have you inadvertently put your reliance in fundamentally fragile human systems? This difference has significant consequences for how you will negotiate the approaching turmoil and complete your function as a chosen one. The solution calls for an honest evaluation of where your actual loyalty resides, particularly under trial by hardship, not just intellectual agreement. Think about the pragmatic consequences of this anchoring. Do you find yourself panicked with the crowds when economic systems fail? Or does your faith stay constant in the understanding that divine provision surpasses transient market changes? When political leaders let down or breach public trust, does your faith in human government falter, or do you have unshakable confidence in God's sovereign plan? These situations are daily realities that test the depth of your spiritual roots, not theory. The collapse reveals if your foundation is on shifting sands or solid rock, hence serving as a litmus test. Your belief system has to be examined beyond superficial convictions. Consider if your definition of success is based on divine standards or secular measures. Does my daily routine represent dedication to spiritual development or just conformity with society expectations? Should I see difficulties as chances for spiritual growth or as attacks on personal comfort? These inquiries go beyond superficial self-reflection. They require bravery to face maybe unpleasant reality about your spiritual state. The collapse forces you to confront your genuine connection with the divine and remove facile justifications. Inevitably, priorities follow beliefs, hence determining how you distribute your most valuable resources: time, energy, and focus. It's simple to keep a veneer of faith during times of stability while chasing worldly goals. But when foundations shake, real priorities become clear. Are you pursuing transient profits or investing in timeless values? Do your decisions show confidence in divine timing or worry about lost chances? The collapse pushes these issues to the front, so preventing a split loyalty between God and mammon. This evaluation process is designed to orient you for greatest efficacy in your vocation, not to cause guilt or shame. Knowing where your faith really lies helps you to alter required before the storms get stronger. It lets you clarify your goal, deepen current roots, and improve weak places. The collapse is both a warning and a chance. It warns you against illusory security and gives you the opportunity to create real spiritual stability before more difficulties come. Your spiritual moorings assessment ought to include both vertical and horizontal aspects. From a vertical perspective, consider the quality of your relationship with the divine, its constancy, depth, and sincerity. Consider how this relationship shapes your relationships with people, your community contributions, and your effect on the world horizontally. A religion that doesn't transfer into action stays theoretical at best. Hence, both aspects call for close examination. The fall calls for tangible proof of spiritual commitment rather than just intellectual agreement with divine values. In the end, this process of self-examination is about placing oneself to get divine direction and power, not about attaining perfection. The fall will challenge everyone's faith, but those who have sincerely evaluated their spiritual state will come out stronger and more robust. They will see that an unbreakable link to divine truth rather than outside conditions or human institutions gives rise to actual stability. This insight changes chaos into clarity, doubt into possibility, and fear into faith. Conducting a comprehensive inventory of your beliefs and priorities. Keep in mind that the aim is not to establish your own stability, but to submit to divine sovereignty, believing that God's foundation will be enough regardless of external factors. The Great Divide, distinguishing eternal truth from transient solutions. A flood of voices erupts as society struggles with growing problems, each one offering quick fixes and instant stability. These dynamic people and creative ideas look quite convincing as they provide apparently reasonable answers covered in interesting speech and supported by great credentials. But knowing their actual character calls for a look at both their promises and their underlying ideologies. From economic bubbles founded on speculative ideas to political campaigns that promise paradise but delivered tyranny, history offers innumerable instances when misguided trust in human creativity had catastrophic results. The collapse we are seeing now increases these risks and makes spiritual discernment not only useful but absolutely necessary for life. Human leaders, no matter their motives or visible accomplishments, are nevertheless basically limited by their mortality and fallibility. Even the most well-meaning officials work from constrained viewpoints shaped by human prejudices, partial knowledge, and complicated objectives often at odds with heavenly values. Think about how quickly new issues are produced by technical developments, even as they are amazing, often outpacing solutions to current ones. Originally praised as means of connection and knowledge, social media sites have instead fueled mental health crises, societal strife, and false information. Economic measures advocated by knowledgeable economists can occasionally have unintentional effects that aggravate the same problems they sought to solve. Human systems and charismatic people cannot create true security. It lies only in God's unrelenting promises, which stay constant amid evolving conditions. This difference is especially important as different ideas fight for your loyalty under crises. Though their approaches may conflict with divine values of love, forgiveness, and redemption, certain movements may seem kind on the surface, supporting social justice or environmental conservation. Some people might claim to be intellectually better, appealing to reason and scientific advancement while discounting spiritual truths as antiquated beliefs. Usually emphasizing symptoms over underlying causes, these methods provide band-aid remedies for deep-seated spiritual problems. Your mission as a chosen one calls for extraordinary discernment, the capacity to distinguish between transient illusions and real hope. Several important signs show this awareness. First, consider if a suggested remedy treats surface-level symptoms or addresses deeper spiritual issues. Because they do not change hearts and minds, quick remedies seldom result in sustainable transformation. Second, determine whether the method fits with everlasting values discovered in Scripture and divine revelation. Often, human institutions give money gain over spiritual development, expediency over justice, and efficiency over morality first priority. Third, watch how the answer deals with failure and opposition. Does it show resilience based on divine truth, or does it fall apart under pressure? Discernment also calls for knowledge of how various systems manage power and authority. Usually, human-centered solutions focus authority in certain people or organizations, hence generating fresh hierarchies and dependencies. On the other hand, divine knowledge spreads power via means of service, humility, and mutual support. Observe how leaders react to criticism. Do they embrace reasonable criticism and change as necessary, or do they stifle opposition and expect unquestioning loyalty? While fake systems promote control and reliance, real solutions encourage responsibility and freedom. Remember that while you negotiate this terrain of conflicting voices and ideas, discernment is not about dismissing anything new or unusual. It's more about judging everything against timeless truths and heavenly criteria. Some inventions could really fit God's goals, hence improving human ability to serve others and promote kingdom ideals. The secret is in judging every proposition while keeping spiritual sensitivity. Consider, Does this strategy bring people nearer to divine truth or farther away? Does it enable people to develop spiritually, or does it produce fresh kinds of bondage? Does it encourage love-based togetherness or fear-based separation? The collapse magnifies these difficulties and increases the need for discrimination. The need to grab at any obvious answer increases as conventional frameworks fail and new ideas surface. But this is exactly when spiritual discernment shows greatest value. Those who develop this talent set themselves to lead others from uncertainty into real hope. They understand that actual change calls for a basic adjustment in human awareness toward divine harmony, not only for policies or technology. Faith under pressure, the crucible of spiritual testing. Every true believer ultimately experiences times when their faith is most severely tested. During this era of collapse, such challenges may become rather acute. These tests appear in many different ways, each meant to hone your spiritual dedication and separate between shallow adherence and unrelenting devotion. As society more and more regards spiritual beliefs as antiquated or obsolete, peer pressure is especially sharp. In social situations, office settings, or even among family members who consider your faith foolish or unrealistic, you may find your beliefs mocked. External pressures like these might set off internal conflicts that make you doubt if being strong is worthwhile for the possible loss of social approval, job prospects, or relationships. Passing these tests is a process that calls for constant surrender to divine presence and allows God's power to work through you. It goes beyond just willpower. When mockery or suffering comes, use these times as chances to strengthen your faith instead of abandoning it. Every difficulty offers a decision to develop your spiritual roots or to fall into compliance. Those who keep going find that with every challenge passed, their faith gets stronger. What first seems to be a danger to your spiritual path changes into a stepping stone toward more maturity and awareness. Think back on past instances of people who had comparable hardships. People like Corrie ten Boom, who kept her faith throughout Nazi concentration camps, or contemporary Christians suffering in limited countries, show how tenacity and faith may inspire others. Your tenacity now could be a strong witness for future, thereby motivating others who first questioned or ridiculed your convictions. Every test you pass helps you to grow spiritually and also equips you to lead others through comparable trials. The tests themselves turn into tools of heavenly purpose, so developing you into a more efficient tool for kingdom labor. Internal conflicts frequently follow outside pressures, producing what may be called a faith crisis. Your mind may be attacked by doubts about God's kindness, the veracity of spiritual truths, or the relevance of keeping faith in contemporary society. These uncertainties are not always indicators of poor faith, but rather reflections of increasing spiritual awareness. Your reaction to these inquiries will determine the key. Engage your doubts honestly and look for heavenly knowledge instead of ignoring them or denying their existence. Doubt becomes a fuel for spiritual development with this technique rather than a possible faith killer. The degree of these tests differs with your situation and calling. While some experience more subtle kinds of opposition, others may suffer blatant persecution for their beliefs. Whether your test is particular or general, keep in mind that God never squanders pain. Every encounter helps you to spiritually shape by fostering traits as patience, perseverance, and compassion that are really priceless in serving others. Your answer to these challenges shapes not just your own spiritual development, but also your capacity to assist others negotiate their own paths of faith. Practical ways to survive these challenges are keeping consistent spiritual practices, creating encouraging religious groups, and staying focused on eternal viewpoints instead of transient disappointments. Your worth is not set by human approval, but by divine calling. So keep that in mind when confronted with. In times of uncertainty, get advice from seasoned Christians, and read scripture narratives of those who had comparable trials. Most essential, understand that your tenacity is about proving God's faithfulness to a watching world, not only about personal survival. The anti-God movement, modern-time subversion of divine veracity. Movements openly rejecting divine authority attain extraordinary speed as the breakdown deepens, presenting complex challenges to spiritual authenticity, cunningly camouflaged as progressive enlightenment or intellectual development. These anti-God ideas use sophisticated techniques that deserve close scrutiny. Often hidden in rhetoric of compassion, equality, and scientific rigor, they make their rejection of divine truth less clear but just as harmful. These movements are defined by three main traits: their false appeal to reason, their methodical subversion of moral absolutes, and their deliberate targeting of weak groups. First, these ideas show themselves as bastions of logical thinking, therefore rejecting divine revelation as archaic superstition incompatible with current knowledge. They contend that faith is an antiquated system that impedes human development, and that scientific technique and factual data should take the place of spiritual intuition and divine knowledge. Educational systems, media narratives, and cultural organizations gradually marginalizing spiritual viewpoints while promoting secular humanism as the default worldview reveal this onslaught on the validity of faith. The risk is in how well these arguments use legitimate scientific developments to invalidate millennia of accumulated spiritual knowledge, hence producing generations doubtful of anything outside material explanation. Secondly, under the pretense of encouraging personal freedom and tolerance, these groups methodically destroy moral absolutes. They promote moral relativism, saying that personal choice or cultural background determines truth. Redefining sin as personal decision or societal construct helps to nullify divine orders in this way. For instance, ideas like ultimate truth, objective morality, and divine power start to be seen as restrictive limits instead than freeing values. The outcome is a society more and more unable to tell true freedom, which involves responsibility to divine standards, from license, which rejects any limits. Thirdly, these ideas precisely target vulnerable groups, using reasonable complaints to steer them away from miraculous remedies. They find disadvantaged people, disenfranchised young people, and underprivileged communities and provide them false hope via political action, identity politics, or materialistic promises. The approach seeks to convince followers that heavenly solutions are either useless or non-existent, while also promoting reliance on human institutions. This strategy is especially sneaky as it seems to fulfill genuine wants, but instead increases spiritual destitution. Often, those ensnared in this web find themselves imprisoned in cycles of victimization mentality and unable to tap the transforming power of genuine faith. Operating via complex networks of media outlets, educational institutions, business enterprises, and government agencies, these anti-God movements by use of several channels. They coordinate their message to guarantee continual reinforcement of their point of view. Algorithms on social media increase their reach and generate echo chambers that cut people off from other points of view. Cultural influencers, celebrities, and thought leaders spread their stories, thereby rendering rejection to divine truth seem common and acceptable. The cumulative impact produces a hostile climate for real faith when voicing spiritual beliefs endangers social ostracism or professional consequences. Knowing these interactions helps you to see the larger spiritual conflict occurring. The resistance is against the entire basis of supernatural power in human affairs, not only against religious rituals or theological ideas. These movements want to replace human autonomy for divine sovereignty, spiritual truth for subjective preference, and eternal purpose for temporary enjoyment. Their final aim is nothing less than the total subversion of humanity's formed design, cutting the link between creator and creation. Knowing these tactics helps you to lead others through the fraud around them and helps you to be strong. The unexpected, finding your way through the sudden change. Among the most distinctive features of collapse is its sudden and erratic quality, which surprises even the most alert witnesses. Until spectacular change happens apparently instantaneously, stability often deceives for long years, lulling people and society into a false feeling of security. This abruptness shows itself in several ways. Political systems that looked unshakable fall in days. Economic systems that seemed strong abruptly wobble on the edge of collapse. And social institutions that have survived for centuries vanish quite quickly. Such fast changes as psychological effects might be catastrophic, causing anxiety, disorientation, and frantic efforts to restore the old order instead of fit to the new reality. Being a chosen one gives you a special edge to negotiate these unexpected changes. Your preparedness includes spiritual readiness, mental fortitude, and emotional resilience, especially developed for crisis situations in addition to simple knowledge of possible collapse. You are ready to react with knowledge and calm while others rush to grasp the size of change. Consistent spiritual practices that have reinforced your inner foundation show this readiness and help you to keep balance when outside conditions spiral out of control. Regular prayer, meditation, and biblical study build neurological connections that immediately engage during stressful situations, therefore granting quick access to spiritual serenity and direction. Your uniqueness shows not just in your ability to be calm, but also in your ability to offer stability to others. Your calm presence acts as an anchor for others around you as panic spreads viral throughout communities. This steadying effect is not about looking unmoved by happenings, but rather about showing real tranquility that crosses situations. Your answers, measured, considered, and based on divine knowledge, provide sensible solutions instead of reactive ones. Whether it's coaching coworkers through workplace disturbances, helping neighbors negotiate food shortages, or counseling friends in personal difficulties, your deeds spring from a position of readiness rather than need. The need of spiritual, mental, and emotional preparedness cannot be emphasized too often. Spiritually, your link to divine truth offers an unbreakable basis that stays constant despite external turmoil. Your mental preparedness consists of knowing historical trends, spotting warning signals, and honing problem-solving abilities that are quite useful in a crisis. Emotionally, your preparation is about developing resilience from past experiences, learning to control stress, and preserving positive connections that foster mutual motivation. These components work together to provide a thorough state of readiness that enables you to flourish instead than just endure amid collapse. Different facets of life show this preparedness in various forms. Financially, you have probably formed sensible stewardship practices, shunning debt traps and preserving emergency reserves. Professionally, you have likely expanded your skill set to guarantee flexibility in evolving employment markets. Relationally, you have created networks of trust and support that are absolutely vital when official institutions fail. Every aspect of preparation adds to your general readiness, therefore forming a web of resilience that enables you to negotiate abrupt changes with grace and efficiency. But your preparedness goes beyond personal gain. You are accountable for guiding others through collapse as someone purposely placed for this time. This means not only providing useful help, but also showing right reactions to disaster. Your capacity to keep routines, show faith in action, and express sincere compassion serves as a guide for others to follow. Your example helps to convey important lessons on how to keep fundamental principles even when one changes. Your readiness, therefore, has two functions: protecting your personal well-being and arming you to help others in their most vulnerable times. The suddenness of the collapse should inspire further planning rather than discourage it. Realizing that major change might happen fast highlights the need of being ready. This knowing motivates you to always improve your spiritual basis, broaden your knowledge base, and acquire useful talents that increase your flexibility. Your planning emphasizes developing resilience across several areas rather than on forecasting certain occurrences, so guaranteeing your readiness to manage whatever kind collapse takes in your particular setting. The cost of faith during crisis: standing firm. Under the furnace of severe testing, not everyone who first professes faith shows the will to keep it alive. The breakdown exposes sharp contrast between individuals with true commitment and others whose faith falls short under continuous strain. Many who formerly seemed enthusiastic about spiritual truth start to distance themselves from their beliefs, pointing to the unending suffering as proof that faith provides no genuine answers. This isn't a new trend. History documents many cases of believers giving up their spiritual obligations under protracted suffering. Maintaining your own faith while helping others through comparable challenges depends on knowing why this happens and how to stop it. Many elements cause this spiritual decline. Many people first base their religion on emotional experiences instead of strong theological basis. Their faith falters as conditions change and emotional highs fade since it lacks deeper foundations. Some people confuse religious activity or church attendance for true contact with God and deem these activities inadequate when actual difficulties emerge. Still, others retain concealed pockets of autonomy that crumble reveals in difficulties, refusing complete power to heavenly authority. Sustained hardship strain brings these basic flaws to the surface, therefore causing either greater dedication or loss of faith. Understanding these trends helps you to strengthen your own faith and assist others negotiate comparable obstacles. Begin by looking at your own basis. Is your faith based on personal encounter with God or just inherited beliefs? Have you built a strong knowledge of Scripture that can resist intellectual obstacles? Have you kept control in any aspects of your life instead of yielding to divine authority? Dealing with these issues beforehand helps you to be more resilient for next examinations. Apart from that, develop real connections with seasoned Christians who can offer encouragement and responsibility in trying times. Helping people in religious crises calls for empathy and knowledge. Steer clear of simple cliches that downplay real suffering or brush aside reasonable concerns. Rather, establish safe areas for open conversation, therefore recognizing the complexity of religion amid trying circumstances, while directing people to Scripture truths that have kept Christians through millennia of adversity. Share personal stories of conquering doubt. Instead of expecting quick recovery of past zeal, inspire little, sensible acts of faith. Much like after a storm, restoring faith sometimes calls for patience and tenacity. Remember that. Keeping faith amid extended hardship also means rethinking achievement and development. Rather of judging faith by emotional highs or observable outcomes, emphasize fidelity in modest daily decisions. Acknowledge that spiritual development usually follows erratic patterns. Thus, celebrate little successes and gradual progress. Understand that times of doubt and questioning may coexist with sincere dedication as you travel the spiritual path, thereby shaping reasonable expectations. This even-handed approach supports trust at times of obvious stagnation or decline. Establishing consistent rhythms of spiritual discipline, participating in significant service to others, and seeking continuous theological study are all practical ways to retain faith. These events strengthen faith by means of action and provide structure during turbulent times. Furthermore, keep good limits that guard your spiritual vitality and allow you to follow divine direction. Keep in mind that faith kept throughout crises often turns out to be more strong and powerful than faith that has never been put to test. Your tenacity not only reinforces your own spiritual basis, but also enables you to assist others more confidently and knowledgeably negotiate their own paths of faith. False messiahs, the limits of human solutions. From the beginning of time, people have shown a consistent inclination to raise political leaders and charismatic people to messianic level, hoping they would single-handedly address complicated, deeply rooted issues. Every generation looks for redemption via human agency instead of supernatural intervention. Hence, this trend recurs across cultures and ages. From revolutionary leaders promising utopian futures to technology visionaries announcing digital deliverance, these people fascinate public imagination with great ideas and bold speech. But all human remedies eventually reveal insufficient, no matter their early victories or seeming knowledge, when judged against the scale of the spiritual struggle at hand. Periods of collapse highlight the shortcomings of human leadership especially. Though well-meaning, politicians work with limited viewpoints and limited lifetimes. Though maybe significant in the short term, their choices usually have unintentional effects that aggravate current problems. Though they are clever, technological developers cannot predict how their inventions will be exploited or the whole range of human behavior. Equipped with advanced models and historical data, economic analysts regularly miss key market changes or systematic collapses. These restrictions are not defects in personal character, but natural limits of human nature. Divine knowledge is still essentially superior to even the most sophisticated human understanding. With every discovery exposing fresh layers of complexity, scientific knowledge develops by means of trial and error. While developing new ones, technological advancement addresses certain issues and sometimes creates dependencies that are hard to sever. Though useful, educational institutions can only pass on current information instead of reach ultimate reality. Impressive as it may be, the combined intelligence of mankind operates within limits that divine knowledge surpasses. This disparity is most clear in crises, when human systems hit their breaking point and supernatural intervention becomes unambiguous need. The contrast between human and heavenly remedies exposes important differences. Human methods usually emphasize symptoms over underlying reasons, therefore handling urgent issues but neglecting more profound spiritual states. Efficiency over morality, expedience above justice, and money gain over spiritual development are their priorities. By contrast, divine answers address basic problems of the human situation, providing transformation that starts in the heart and spreads outward. Where human institutions generate new hierarchies and dependencies, heavenly wisdom encourages freedom and duty. As collapse advances, this disparity becomes more obvious and reveals the weakness of human-centered strategies, even as it emphasizes the ongoing efficacy of divine values. Knowing these boundaries helps you to keep appropriate perspective amid emergencies. Although human leaders and systems influence society, putting all faith in them causes disappointment and frustration. Rather, appreciate their contributions while keeping obvious knowledge of their limits and acknowledge their appropriate role under divine rule. Fostering realistic hope based on heavenly promises rather than human potential This balanced perspective avoids both cynical despair and naive optimism. This point of view is quite useful for keeping faith and realistically interacting with the environment around you as collapse keeps unfolding, shining through darkness, revealing hope in trying times. This time calls for nothing less than the full light of your genuine faith as darkness appears to engulf every part of the planet. Shining your light is more than literary language. It is real deeds lighting ways out of despair. Your constant showing of heavenly values becomes more strong than any sermon in times when the spiritual gap gets more pronounced and humanity's shared worry hits fever pitch. Every expression of unconditional love, every act of kindness, and all examples of unrelenting optimism are beacons pulling people from their darkness into the warmth of divine reality. Shining your light's practical expression calls for conscious aim in everyday life. Consistent prayer, scripture study, and company with other Christians help you to preserve your own spiritual vigor, which starts the process of doing. This basis allows you to genuinely care for others around you, not as a performance, but as a natural outflow of your connection with God. Simple deeds like listening without judgment, providing tangible assistance to needy neighbors, or saying words of encouragement to downcast coworkers become strong testimony of faith in action. These expressions of compassion offer real proof of God's presence in a cynical society cutting through the cacophony of hollow rhetoric. Especially when society pressure grows against spiritual expression, visibility of religion requires bravery. But this exposure is about living truthfully in every sphere of influence, not about conflict or proselytizing. Your place of employment turns into a mission area where quality and integrity mirror God's nature. Family bonds change into chances to show unconditional love and forgiveness. Community participation shows tangible concern for the neglected and underprivileged. Every encounter, however seeming unimportant, has the power to brighten someone's day. Your light will attract more people looking for hope the more openly you let it shine. Authentic faith's magnetic appeal works on several levels: emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. Though they cannot quickly express its origin, people know real love when they feel it. Your unrelenting optimism in the face of hardship questions their pessimism. Your unwavering moral compass in the face of cultural relativism raises doubts about your basis. These experiences allow for more in-depth discussions on faith, not by debate, but by actual lived evidence of heavenly values. Practical ways to shine your light include growing spiritual practices that maintain your personal flame burning brightly. Regular periods of solitude and introspection help you to stay linked to the spiritual source. Participating in community service initiatives increases your impact beyond your close circles. Participating in small group study offers shared motivation and enriches your knowledge. Sharing personal stories of God's faithfulness increases the validity of your witness. Every one of these tasks helps to create a way of life that draws people to the light you bear. Remember that reflecting divine truth, not personal honor, is what lighting your light is about. Often, the most powerful witnesses talk least about their personal experiences and most about God's fidelity. They love instead of lecture, serve instead of sermonizing, and show instead of proclaiming. Particularly during periods of great gloom, when people need sincerity more than eloquence, this strategy is quite effective. For those bruised by life's storms, your regular presence, defined by sincere concern and spiritual tranquility, provides a refuge. Your bright light's influence goes much beyond present conditions. Every life your genuineness touches has the possibility to shine on others, hence starting a ripple effect of changed lives. This multiplying impact shows the exponential power of real faith articulated by pragmatic love. More lights and darkness cause the group lighting to start pushing back shadows and generate patches of hope that slowly spread into larger spheres of influence. Your consistent showing of divine truth helps to fuel this bigger movement of spiritual awakening. Thus, you are both participant and catalyst in humanity's redemption narrative. Unchanging truth, anchoring in eternal foundations. Amid rising worldwide uncertainty, the need to have a strong biblical basis first becomes most important. This foundation needs total immersion in divine ideas until they infiltrate every area of thinking, feeling, and action. It surpasses sporadic Bible reading or devotional activities. The transforming power of Scripture is not only in its academic material, but also in its ability to rewire brain connections, change emotional reactions, and guide behavioral patterns according to divine design. This degree of involvement calls for methodical study coupled with pragmatic application, so integrating spiritual truth into everyday living. Achieving this degree of Scripture absorption calls for methodical techniques, guaranteeing thorough covering of biblical doctrines and room for personal discovery. Starting with organized reading strategies that systematically traverse Old and New Testaments, observe thematic links and gradual revelation. Include topical studies on theological ideas, societal concerns, and particular life situations to augment this one. Include memory exercises that internalize important verses so that heavenly knowledge is immediately available in times of crisis or choice. Create a personal record of spiritual development and divine encounters by means of reflective journaling, recording insights, applications, and prayers. This deep involvement affects several areas. Intellectually, you grow a consistent worldview based on timeless truths instead of fleeting societal norms. This basis lets you view personal issues, social trends, and current events from heavenly viewpoint instead of popular opinion. Drawing on a pool of heavenly promises rather than reactive impulses, scriptural saturation emotionally offers automatic answers to stress, anxiety, and uncertainty. Consistent use of biblical teachings behaviorally yields fruit seen in community participation, work ethic, and relationships. Establishing consistent study patterns that fit various learning preferences is one practical way to increase scripture involvement. While nighttime thoughts might stress application and prayer, morning devotions can concentrate on motivational texts. Short readings or memorized lyrics might help midday meditations to highlight important ideas. To keep interest and retention, use several study techniques: visual mapping of biblical themes, audio recordings for review, group conversations for insight sharing. Use apps and internet tools to improve study while being smart with technology. Don't let them take the place of real contact with Scripture.